You're listening to Maximum Medicine Radio with host Doc Martin. How do you step into your maximum potential? How do you connect your spiritual drive with your physical path? Get ready to meet the maximum you the world needs on Maximum Medicine Radio with Doc Martin now. Hi, everybody. I'm here with somebody I just met. So, I love to scroll on TikTok because I laugh at the animal videos, but I see things that catch my eye that have spiritual value to me. And I stumbled across Fu-Ding Cheng, who I have now met, who is here with me today. And he is a spiritual warrior. And so we're going to talk together about his journey in quests for spiritual learnings, about just how he operated in life. He's an architect, an author, a wisdom teacher, an artist. And anyway, hi, Fu-Ding. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello, I'm so honored to be here.
So, how do you go from architecture to seeking deeper spiritual truths?
It's a winding, twisting path that started out with immense suffering, of all things. I was born into this family. It was an illustrious family. One grandfather was consultant to the Empress Dowager. He was a healer, a surgeon, and the other was mayor of Guangzhou, which is Canton, the biggest city in the south. Wow, powerful, DNA in there. However, my childhood was far from idyllic. It was unrelenting torment, one problem after a tragedy, after more torment, foster homes, violence. And so from the get-go, I was so suffering. And then when I discovered architecture when I was 14, I thought to myself, this is my escape from all my family problems and all that stuff. And I just fell in love with architecture. I mean, it's only art form that completely surrounds you, except for music. So I always thought of architecture, of the art of frozen music. Anyway, it was my first love. So I became an architect, training in college and stuff, as a way to kind of escape all my family problems. That's what got me into architecture. But not only that, but there was a mystical dimension about architecture that I just intuitively, particularly a history of spiritual buildings. Stonehenge, the temples, Parthenon, the basilicas, and all the way through the Gothic cathedrals to our modern time of, Buddhist temples and so on. So a history of architecture is a history of spiritual buildings. Boy, I can really get into this. And I just threw myself into architecture. And so I did really well. I won a traveling fellowship in college, this competition, and a year free travel in Europe. How cool. But when I came back from that wonderful trip, a whole other story, my problems still remained. I was still sorrowful. I still felt abject loneliness and so on. And I didn't know it, but it was from my childhood. And now it's so obvious. But anyway, and so I was in Berkeley.
I'm kind of smiling inside because I'm not going to call you old, but you're old enough to remember probably the Pan Am Airlines. And they had an ad, and they had a famous actor who did a TV show, police detective show, Robert Conrad. I don't know if you remember him.
No, I can't remember.
It was, come take Pan Am, go to these wonderful places, take a vacation, go somewhere beautiful, and don't worry. It'll all be here when you come back. Don't worry about leaving it behind. It'll all be here when you come back.
Exactly.
I mean, it's all still here, isn't it?
You can't escape it unless you deal with it. It's an inside job. So here I thought, architecture, I don't care how beautiful that building is. It's not going to fill the hole in my heart. That's an inside job. And that hole in the heart had to do with me addressing my inside as a start and just those problems, no getting around it. So there I was in Berkeley, and I was sleeping 16 hours a day. I didn't have any real reason to live. Life is a tragedy. I had read just enough to know that this is all cosmic illusion, it's Maya, and so on.
Mhm,
Not that it helped me, but it got me on that path until finally I said to myself, boy, I better figure this thing out or I'm going to die ahead of my time. Berkeley in the 60s, drugs, all kinds of, I knew I didn't
mhm,
want to do that, but I had to figure something out. And luckily, I discovered meditation. It was the first time I turned my gaze inward. Oh, wow, what a thought, And so by meditating, let's say this is under Maharishi TM, like that.
mhm.
And for a 20-minute meditation session, one time I got like 5 seconds of peace.
Oh,
Like, whoa, it was like imagine a real nice lake and there's a bunch of leaves on top, and you scrape away the leaves and you can look 30 feet down under through pristine water. It was kind of that
mhm,
kind of a thing. This was an everlasting kind of peace. Okay, meanwhile, the ego side of me says, well, so what? 20 minutes of meditation, you only got 5 seconds. And I'm retorting back and say, hey, wait a moment. That's 5 seconds more peace than I ever had in my life.
mhm.
And that started the ball rolling. And
Uh-huh.
then from then I started meditating, and then I started reading Vedanta philosophy and Ramakrishna and so much more. And then I started getting these unusual experiences. Like one time I was meditating really deep. This is now with Vedanta type meditation.
Mhm,
And it was so still, so profound, so euphoric. I wasn't even moving a bit, no thought. And all of a sudden I woke up in shock. I hadn't breathed for 5, 10 minutes. How can that be? I was just shocked. Oh no. And then another part I had learned enough. No, this kind of stuff does happen. I could see all this oxygen flowing into my every pore. And I thought, that's why I'm so euphoric because of all this oxygen. Another part, don't think you're going through something amazing. Don't think, just keep
mhm,
going. And I just kept going. And it was like plunging into an ocean of infinity. Anyway, I had a number of these kinds of experiences, and then I started wondering, someday I gotta figure all this out. This is way bigger than what my normal thought of what a human being can be. Meanwhile, my architecture, I thought, wait, what I really want to discover through architecture is alter states of reality, the extent of the possible human, the visions and dreams, and architecture is a kind of a clunky thing to haul around to do that. And so, with a lot of dismay, I mean, I sing it one sentence, but it took me a year of anguish to quit the love of my life. And I started becoming a filmmaker. That's a perfect media to talk about dreams and this and that. And
mhm,
so I shifted. Um, oh, here's a funny little incident. When I was on that traveling trip, I learned that I met a big hero of mine, Le Corbusier, the greatest architect at that time, living architect. Anybody who knows architecture will know about him. And anyway, I got a chance to meet him. Here I am, a 21-year-old punk meeting he was in his 70s, the greatest architect at that time. Anyway, I was on the course to work with him. Like, wow, what a boon. Okay, so then on the trip, a couple months after that, I learned that he died. I saw it in the Paris match, the centerfold of everybody, all the thinkers and artists paying tribute to him, him dead. There is my dream, just collapsing. And right at that moment, an inner voice said, whatever you think about your career in architecture, it's like Le Corbusier, dead. Oh my God, what a horrible thought.
isn't always startling how, boom, the universe puts you somewhere else?
Yeah, just shocked me.
Internally, you're actually walking that way, but your mind and your logic and the reality of the 3D world around you, you say you're still over here, but then something happens and boom, you really are over there. And it's like, wait a second, wait a minute, and you have to adapt. And it usually, for me, it's usually a physical health challenge. Boom, I'm down. And then I have that quiet time, because otherwise my life is constant, move, 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 move. And then it goes, I really didn't like where I was.
Yeah,
And
that's so true.
now is the, and you got you got that path blocked because you weren't going to walk that way anymore.
Yeah, something new before I
Hmm.
my mind knew. There's
Right.
an unseen eye watching over us, And
And in other language, you might say your soul knew the pathway and
yeah, my illumined self
made
is,
sure you got over there. Yeah.
yeah, they're probably chuckling, haha, look at him squirm. But anyway, he's on the path.
So then you get
Anyway, so
over, you
then
have to shift. So where did you land?
Oh, so then the next, like there was kind of decided steps, It wasn't some
Hmm.
people enlighten, in one blink, Eckhart Tolle, one moment, and then he's there. In my path, I had every step I had to, every hurdle I had to confront.
Hmm.
So after I quit architecture and having these superordinary experiences, then I read Yogananda's book, how
I
to,
love that book.
yeah, the autobiography of a
Hmm.
yogi.
Hmm.
Wow, he's talking about these superordinary things, seriously. And so then I said to myself, I guess I was 27 at that time. I said,
Hmm.
you know what? I'm not going to be a careerist in art and architecture. I'm going to be a seeker. And my whole life took a different change, a huge change.
Hmm.
And I'm still doing art and architecture to support my quest for personal
Hmm.
freedom. Next thing I know, I'm in the Himalayas and I'm doing what's called, you probably know, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, those superordinary powers. And
Hmm.
wow, superordinary smells. And let's say one key thing was levitation. No, I never hovered, but it was very intense practice, by the way, no sex, no, vegetarian and so on.
Hmm.
And in our rooms meditating or sleeping, 20 hours a day. It was really intense. Anyway, I started bouncing though, and lighter and lighter. And my God, it really works. Now,
Hmm.
some of it was muscular, but not all. That's what did
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Like how can that happen? And I knew my system was being purified. And here it ties in with what I saw in your interest in your website of the combination of spirituality and physics and science.
Hmm.
I learned more about quantum physics during that course in the Himalayas than ever in my life. They were explaining how this could happen in terms of physics. You are basically space, Akasha, they call it. And so if you identified with that, then you would be weightless, etc. There was a method to the madness. It wasn't just magic. No, it was a science. Anyway, so then I started bouncing. That enlarged my mind tremendously. Okay, when I came back from that course, my problems were still there. My sorrows,
Isn't that a shock?
I know
I mean,
that,
those darn problems, they didn't go away.
yeah. And,
Hmm.
and it was like, the spiritual bypass they talk about, you
Hmm.
skip. And so now I was confront, okay, I'm determined to deal with this thing. And so I got involved with like therapy, Jungian thought. I love. I
Hmm.
just value him. Let me see if I can turn this off.
Well,
Anyway, so
Jung is so, we didn't have words for it back then, but he was so tapped in to, we talk about the archetypes, but he was so tapped into the other dimensions. He
yeah,
was
he's a
so
godsend,
tapped in.
I think.
Hmm.
He was able to explain and with the responsibility of Western scientific method to
Hmm.
explain a lot
Hmm.
of these Eastern esoteric thoughts,
Yeah.
like the I Ching, or, it's just
Yeah.
pure chance. And,
Hmm.
he had a way of explaining it. And so I did really deep work with a therapist who was also into meditation and all that.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, I solved all that sorrow, that problem from childhood all the way back. Like my big uh, wound was nobody knows, nobody cares. It was from my childhood upbringing. But anyway, just address that stuff, just full bore, going at it. And wow, then I was free. I mean, I did not have that sadness and
Hmm.
which I learned was actually the grief of my mom, who had just being tortured by one of my grandfathers, and so it was like the divine alchemy. I mean, divine feminine versus the patriarch. That was
Hmm.
my grandfather and my mother.
Hmm.
And she had all this sorrow because of it, and I had carried it. As a matter of fact, when she was going through heavy migraines, I was in her womb. So from the very get-go, as far as I remember, life was a tragedy, And that lasted until I guess I was 40 before I really was able to address it and heal that. And now I'm in a whole different place.
I say this often, and so, if people have heard me say it before, it's going to sound like a cliche, but the energetics through your lineages, biologic, energetic, collective imprints, cultural, when we heal ourselves, we literally pay it backward.
Yes, I agree.
We we
Totally
we
underline that.
heal, we heal we heal our ancestors when we heal ourselves.
Yeah, you enter this timeless zone,
Hmm.
right? And then it works forwards and backwards. Y-
And one of the things that we were taught, I was taught in the Peruvian shamanic tradition with Alberto Violdo's Four Winds Society, and we talked about clearing family imprints, but you can clear generational curses. And those are the flow of the energetics. I happen to believe, and I have no science to back it up, but I happen to believe that that energetic current literally resonates in the molecular structure of our DNA and in an energetic way, not because our DNA has genes and we inherited them and all, but I mean as a vibrating structure. But anyway, that's another story. But that whole energetic imprint, our soul's vibration carries all of that lineage, the past life
Yeah, yeah,
lineage, the energetic lineage, the ancestral lineage. So when you heal it, you really break the curses.
yeah. It's so true.
Hmm.
Like sometimes I explain this very same point is a great
Hmm.
point. It's like, let's say James Joyce in literature. Wow,
Hmm.
changed the future of literature. But he also changed the past of literature because now they're looking, oh, this monk in medieval time was writing stream of consciousness, right? It went both
Hmm.
ways. And likewise when we heal.
Hmm. So
Anyway, so then
you
now,
loved you learned a lot from the Himalayan wisdom.
oh, a lot. Like Vedanta
Hmm.
philosophy is
Hmm.
gave me an irresistible appeal to my intellect about talking
Hmm.
about this stuff, those
Hmm.
long words, they're
Hmm.
so concise. However, in terms of practice, like Buddhists practice in terms of practice,
Hmm.
you know, and every tradition gave a contribution in a different way.
Hmm.
And so now out of the Himalayas, and then thanks to Jungian, I saw that. And then one day I happened to, someone said, hey, there's this Mexican shaman who's talking about stuff. And I know you're interested in this kind of stuff. You want to go? And it was just in the living room. I had studied with Castaneda a little bit.
Hmm.
I love his books, but I did not like his teachings. He was too fear driven. And so, immediately alarm bells.
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
gone through a lot of wonderful teachings, Himalayas. They're not fear driven, enough
Right,
of this kind of
right.
Christian hellfire. No, none of that.
Hmm.
But he preached it. No, the biggest impetus for your spiritual growth is through fear. And immediately my, bamboo curtain came down.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though I love his books now, don't get, so it's a mixed thing. But
Hmm.
then I thought, oh, another opinion with Don Miguel Ruiz. Now, this was years before his books came out, so nobody really knew who he was. But anyway, I happened into this living room in West Hollywood, and then I heard him talk. And then I realized, okay, at first I was kind of comparing him with the eloquence of Castaneda, how he talks. He talks very simply, and I mean,
Hmm.
as profound as he is simple, but it's different. And I thought, oh no, I'm in my head, comparing, judging. No, I
Hmm.
knew enough to breathe into my heart to kind of release my thoughts. And then I had an insight. All his words, whether I liked it or not, eloquent or not, didn't matter. What the real thing was that he had filled the whole room with a higher vibratory rate to open all our hearts. And I thought, wow, in that case, he's a real master. So that's
Mhm.
certainly worth another visit, and then another, and before you know it, I was totally aboard. On a drop of a hat. These shamans, they don't exactly give you a schedule. You want to learn blah blah blah, be in Santa Rosa on so and so date, and then you're either there or you're not there. Anyway, one thing led to another. I learned so much from him, and finally, in a big ritual in Teotihuacan, where those giant pyramids are, we do this. It starts out with a death
Temple of the Sun,
and the temple. There's a pyramid of the sun, pyramid
Pyramid of
of the
the Sun.
moon.
Uh-huh.
It's a whole sequence. It's a mile
Hmm.
and a half long. And we're starting out with death rituals on the first day, like, whoa, this is serious stuff. And then you work up and you release your air and you release your waters and so on. And at the very end, at the climax, they have a climatic ritual called Jump to the Sun. And then
Hmm.
60 of his apprentices in this big circle at the sacrificial altar, it's called. It's like a
Hmm.
big concrete platform right in front of the Pyramid of the Moon. And the only thing we learned was that there was a connection energetically between the earth and the sun. Now we're talking symbolically, so it's like
Right.
heaven and earth, the spiritual and the physical, however you want to say it.
Hmm.
But he didn't put too much intellectual information. He didn't care about getting into the mind so much as giving you the experience. Fu-Ding and Gabi, get in the middle. Oh, wow. I was so honored and I was so terrified. Like, I don't know what to do in the middle of a circle where you jump to the sun. What does that even mean? And anyway, I knew enough though, when my mind, going, I'm Chinese, so the shame thing is huge. We're not big on guilt, but shame, in front of 60 people. But I did my
You
little
can't
breathing
you
into my
can't
heart.
lose face.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What
Hmm.
if I blow
Hmm.
it, And what's the criteria to blow it
Hmm.
even? Anyway, he came up and okay, I'm going to have faith that he'll give me more instructions. So he said everybody in the circle, shoot energy from your heart to the two in the middle, and the two in the middle will shoot it up to the sun. Okay, that was
Wow.
basically an instruction.
Wow.
And so I heard him, we're all kind of meditating with eyes closed. And so I had faith that he would come to me and give me more instructions. So sure enough, I hear his footsteps coming and he says, Fu-Ding, let yourself go. And then he walked off, and I said, "That's it. Wait." But again, I knew, okay, stop that mind chatter, and breathe into my heart. And immediately, I saw laser beams coming in from all the 60, like of light, and energy just
Hmm.
filled me, and my whole body just shot up, like whoa, it just filled up. Next thing, I had to go onto my feet. And next thing, I had to throw my hands up and have energy. If I didn't, my chest would burst. Energy would, and I sent it up to the sun. Just all intuitive. And it went up to the sun. Then sounds came out of my mouth, like, whoa, like kung fu shouts. And then
Hmm.
this finger went this way, back and forth. I can't even do it. And I thought to myself, okay, I did my job. I let myself go because I would not be able to do that. And I just surrendered to what else. Spirit, take me. I'm yours. Thoughts came up. It just blew out. It was like, this isn't love. Love is sweet and gentle and divine. It was just blown out. Like, try to imagine posting a post-it note on the end of a fire hose. That energy just blew it out. Anyway, and it just went on. I lost conscious control of my body. I lost my will. All I knew before I passed out into God knows what other reality was that I, a living conduit between heaven and earth. And it just went on. I don't know for how long until I felt this huge pressure in my chest. And it was Don Miguel. He says, "That's enough. That's enough." And he helped me sit down, back down. Anyway, afterwards, I realized I had woken up from the dream of the planet. It's the biggest blessing I've had in my whole life. Architecture, art, films, whatever. And they won prizes. So what? This is the biggest accomplishment, of my
Hmm.
life. If I died, I did a TED talk once and I just said it. If I died now, I'd die happy. Life well spent. I woke up from
Hmm.
the dream of the planet. Thank you, Don Miguel. And then from then on, well, your relationship with the earth is so different. This is Maya. It's a dream. Your whole perspective on everything you would know, it's so different. So I even went to Don Miguel and I said, "Hey, um, Thanks to you, if I had these tremendous experience, what should I do with it all? He says, it's not my problem. And I said, well, yeah, but help me out a little bit, because everything's so different. And he says, well, then you might start teaching. And so then I started teaching. And now, and doing it, teaching through the art. I still love doing art
Mhm.
and films and there were mystical adventure story. Anybody interested can look in my website and you'll see them. They won a lot of prizes and retrospective at the Hammer, etc. But anyway, now I'm devoted to spread the deepest wisdom to the widest number of people, hence my books, etc., etc.
So let's talk a minute about your art because I just saw some on your website and you do these watercolor simple calligraphy brush strokes, black on white of your cat.
Oh, yeah, that was one series. Yes, my beloved Zenzi, my
And
cat.
they are, you feel the energy of that four-legged being. I love those pictures,
Oh,
those
thank you.
those
Yeah.
paintings. Well, they are
Oh, inspired
so
by him.
right, they're so simple, but you can feel him. Is he still
Yeah.
alive?
No, he passed away last year. Oh, he was my little guru.
Hmm.
He's
Yeah.
my little
I'll try to
I
pull.
consider him my little angel in fur.
Uh-huh. I'll try to download one of those pictures from your website so we can include it in the video in the edit of this that
Oh,
we
that would be wonderful. Yeah,
because
no, I
he would
posted it on TikToks and it really hit,
he's
people love.
really he's just he's a being. He's a being. He's just watches and he's got yeah, anyway.
Oh, I'm glad you noticed. Yeah, because it was a beautiful project, like here's Zenzi as a baby, the innocent. Here's Zenzi the vulnerable. Here's Zenzi the vigilant warrior. Here's Zenzi the wise, and so on.
Hmm.
I was trying to capture his various aspects of him. And in watercolor, like in terms of spirituality, is in ancient in China, Tang Dynasty, it's like considered the highest art form because it goes from very abstract poetry kind of thing to
Hmm.
figurative form to the physical paper, so from spiritual to the material, it's
Hmm.
encompassed in this one thing. And so there's a lot about the Zen of the single stroke, one shot
Yeah,
deal, right?
yeah.
You have to be really
Hmm.
centered and do it.
Hmm.
Anyway, I love watercolor. That's my favorite art medium.
Hmm. Yeah, well, those are beautiful. I'll try to download some to include them. But
Oh, that'd be
so,
great. I think the people would love them.
I bet they would love them. Yep. So, what do you think for you have been the major takeaways from studying Toltec wisdom with Don Miguel?
Ooh, there's so much
Is there
to
too
see.
much? Okay.
Oh, yeah,
We'll
well,
pick one or two.
take one or two. Let's say, well, first of all, you are God, but you are dreaming that you are not. Wake up. Okay, that first time he said that just hit me. It was so succinct and intuitively before I knew the full dimension of it all. Wow, that's true. And then now, like borrowing from Eastern thought, your essence, our essence, anybody's essence is Satchitananda, as you might know. Sat means Sanskrit. Sat means your pure energy, your integrity of who you are. Chit, C-H-I-T, is consciousness, wisdom, that side of it, thinking,
Mhm.
mindfulness. And then Ananda is love, bliss. That's our essence, Satchitananda, energy, consciousness, love. Like, whoa. Now, then we started learning how to get that because it's more than just a beautiful thought. It is a beautiful thought, but you can experience it. So you go through these things. Now, what keeps you from not experiencing? This is one of the biggest things I learned from it is the parasites. So what Jung would call the shadow, I think Jung should
Mhm.
have been given a Nobel Prize for even introducing the
Mhm.
whole idea of shadow. But what I found in my experience, like with Don Miguel, it took it the next step. Not only is it recognized that there is a shadow side, he calls them parasites because they're non-physical entities that eat our chi. through
Mhm.
our emotions. They're not physical, they don't eat us physically, but our energy, our chi, our life force
Right.
energy. And the worst
They
one,
drain you.
yeah, you'll feel
Mhm.
or inspire,
Mhm.
whatever. And like I used to have I used to complain about the art world, my childhood upbringing, this and this and that. And then through him, I learned, wait, the real problem isn't the world like that. It's I had an overactive judge. And that's one of the worst of the parasites, the inner judge. And with it, the inner victim. And because the judge always finds you guilty, and then you say, "Oh, why am I always the bad guy? Why don't I
Mhm.
get so
Mhm.
and so?" And so the victim, they kind of go together.
Right.
So that's another big thing I learned from the shamanic practices, how to deal with those parasites. And so let's say one thing, let's say if you get the judge, there's like the judge has a dozen tentacles, self-worth issues, arrogance, hubris, comparing, envy, all that is based on the judge. And if
Mhm.
you get the judge, the head of the monster, so to speak, all those tentacles just evaporate on their own. My God, imagine a life with none of that judgment. So
Wow.
that's another big thing I learned. And just to be clear, when
Hmm.
you don't have the judge, doesn't mean that everything is nicey nice, okie dokie. No, no, no. You're still making discernments. It's like the Buddhist sort of discrimination, they would call it
Right.
discernment. And the
Right.
difference being this, like judgment, good, evil, sin, all that. No, who are we to judge?
Hmm.
But discernment is, oh, truth and illusion. What serves
Hmm.
your ego? What serves your heart? That kind of thing. You're
Right.
still
Right.
making discernment, but just to know that distinction was a huge thing.
Hmm.
So we have practices where we learn, like in my book, there's step-by-step practices of how to vanquish the judge and the victim, etc. You know.
So tell us about your book.
Oh, I'm so proud of this book. I have a copy here. Here's what it kind of looks like. And it's just
Okay.
went through a 10-year revision. Don Miguel loved the book and gave a forward to it. And one of the centerpieces of it is, since I was an architect, I love the power of drawings and images. Like a two-dimensional drawing can tell you how to build the Taj Mahal, this kind of.
Hmm.
And so I had this thought after I woke up, and anyway, what if I could use my powers of drawing and illustration to draw the map of our mind, our psyche?
Hmm.
We draw all the way to Mars and everything, but wait, again, turn the gaze inward. And so this is built on a series of 12 maps. The first one, let's say this one, is being. Wait, there's nothing on this blueprint, but that's the nature of being, right? In quantum physics, they would say the
Hmm.
unified quantum field. Nothing is manifested, and yet everything comes from there. And that's the nature of being. And then I'll show you just one more, and you get the system. Then it would be like, oh, the birth of the soul. This is a first step in you being an individual. Like we know we're a God, we know we are infinite and so on, but wait, we're still an individual. What's the deal here?
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, hence the power of the ego. This is the last one I'll show you. Now we begin the human form, which is like, oh, there's different sheaths, the emotional body, and then the intellectual body, and then the physical body, increasing
Hmm.
degrees of solidity,
Hmm.
of coarseness and like that. And then finally, now we start the formation of ego and so on, all the way to your enlightenment. And then we come into problems, and then how to deal with those problems. So three of the maps have to do with the three big clear paths that everybody must go through in some way or another. I don't care how you call it, but these are the three fundamentals to defeat all those parasites, the ego, what it is, what it isn't. There's some parts of ego that's wonderful. We would not be able to have individual
Right. I was going to
paths.
say there's value to ego. Hmm.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
then there's traps. Oh, what's it? What are they then?
Hmm.
Once you know
Hmm.
these things, oh, you can,
Oh,
it's so
there's
much.
that landmine I'm about to step on,
Yes,
you know?
exactly. Right.
Okay. Hmm.
Don't throw away the baby out with the bathwater. It's just this part that's bad,
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then the three clear paths, the first is reattune with being, attunement with being, get back to your source. That's one thing. And another thing is detachment from Maya, detachment from outcomes, right? So you got
Hmm.
pure mana flowing into you. And by detachment, no way will you get sullied, polluted by the outside world's craziness, delusions, all that kind of stuff. That's the second big thing. And the third thing, and the only other way that can sabotage your well-being is from within yourself. Oh, heal your wounds, just like I had to heal my wounds.
Hmm.
Otherwise,
Which
I
are
don't care how
such a
successful.
source of self-doubt, lack of confidence, all of those wounds, they sap your inner power.
Yeah. And so
Hmm.
in the shamanic tradition, oh, those are parasites. There's anger, there's
Hmm.
doubt, self-worth issues, hubris, whatever. There's dozens. And if you can hit a couple of big ones, you'll know how to deal with the rest of them.
Hmm.
Like if you hit the judge, like in the book, I go into the judge, and there's a very discreet practice for doing it,
Hmm.
step-by-step things you can do. I cleared the judge. And my God, my
So
whole life
we
jumped a
do
level.
have, when you look around, and I find this hard, as much as I've studied and I've worked, I won't say I know because that assumes a mastery when I'm still learning. But we look at the world, and the world is freaking crazy right now. I mean, it's freaking crazy. How can you, how do you help yourself realize the illusion of it so you don't go down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, we are really a mess.
Yeah, no, that's the question for our time.
It is, isn't it? It's a big
Yeah, so
one.
here's what I say, like just a lot of
Hmm.
my, people I work with, like, oh, listen, I had a good friend who said, look at this world, look at the government lying in high places. How did they get away with it? The hypocrisy, they went on and on like that.
Hmm.
I understand. It's what he said was truthful. But I said to him, but hang on there for a second. All that negativity, the hypocrisy, the blaming, the judging, all that, even though understandable, it's not going to help you. All that judgment comes back into your own psyche. You're just stirring up the mud of all
Hmm.
that anger and hatred and hypocrisy. And, why don't they get it? And he said, well, what can you do? And I said, well, wait, from a spiritual warrior viewpoint, let's shift the focus to your higher self. And your higher self would say, oh, look at this same situation now, terrible situation. Let's look at it from a different viewpoint, not
Hmm.
from the ego's viewpoint, which is full of that judgment and victimhood
Hmm.
and all that. Let's look at it from your heart's viewpoint, which is connected to your higher self, your
Right.
illumined self. Going back to you are God, and dreaming you're not, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Anyway, from that viewpoint, then you would look at the same situation. Look at all that suffering. We got to find a way to help. How can I help? Let's have compassion. What causes somebody to do that? Oh, they are insecure within themselves, right? You're
Hmm.
looking deeper. You're finding understanding and patience
Hmm.
and equanimity. Oh, when you do that, a whole other thing kicks in. Thoughts take form. And then
Hmm.
the universe, God, however you want to say it,
Hmm.
sees the resonance of this individual. Oh, no matter what we throw at him, he still sees compassion. He's still into divine alchemy, changing base
Hmm.
metal to gold. He's still into patience, etc. Let's give him more of that. Thoughts take form, and then you start
Hmm.
creating a world. And that starts to plug into a whole other thing. We're in a major phase transformation of the whole planet. We're going on. Another way to look at it is there's so many ways to look at it, from three-dimensional to fifth-dimensional reality. Okay, that's one way to look at it.
Hmm.
Another way is we're increasing the frequency of our body because anger, hatred has a lower vibratory rate than kindness, gentleness, and love.
Hmm.
All right, so we're elevating our frequency. Now, meanwhile, at the same time, the Earth is going through a major, with or without humans, is going through a big
Yeah.
phase transformation.
Yeah.
And this, like for those who don't know, a phase transformation, you heat water, it gets hotter, hotter, hotter. All of a sudden, it jumps into steam. That's a phase transformation. We are going through a phase transformation in consciousness. Okay, so now going back to Toltec stuff, Don Miguel would talk about we are in the birthing of the sixth humanity. We are children of the sixth sun. And anyway, it comes out that this is a sixth version of the Homo sapien race on the physical Earth. And so anyway, the past ones, I say the third one was very elevated intellectually, but they destroyed themselves because of ego and me, that kind of
Mhm.
thinking. And then there's a fourth one, and they destroyed themselves, more or less equivalent to a nuclear waste. The fourth humanity, the good news and the bad news. The good news was that they could survive this toxic waste. The bad news was they did not have the consciousness to absorb this higher wisdoms and stuff. Then, eventually, going through centuries, the fifth one, that's what we are now coming out of. The fifth one is again very intellectually and technologically sophisticated, but again challenged to say not me, but we. The divine feminine is balanced with the masculine. These are the characteristics of the new
Yeah,
humanity.
that's a serious that me versus we. I mean, because it's coming up in our finances and our wealth inequality
Yeah,
and the
isn't it though?
billionaires. And I sometimes when I'm able to see it from a higher perspective, I realize that all of our shadow side is really becoming evident.
Yeah.
You can't hide anymore from the fact that we as humans can be intolerant, cruel, greedy, you know, all of
No, you're
those
hitting on
things.
a fundamental truth. I mean, Jung
Yeah.
would applaud what you just said because he says there's no enlightenment without facing your shadow. And
Mhm.
our whole
Mhm.
country is facing the shadow for the first time.
First time, serious shadow shit.
I know it's
Uh,
coming out everywhere, the
mhm.
corruption, the money, all of it.
Yeah.
And so it's waking up people. Look at the fact that there's millions of people of every state, not to mention the world, but just let's say America,
Mhm.
all marching for a concerted effort, no King's Act or, this kind of thing.
Amazing. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? People were saying,
Amazing.
wait, this is enough.
Mhm.
Democracy is valuable to me. I'm going to put my body on the line. I'm going to march
Yeah.
or whatever they're going to do. But everybody is waking up, myself included. Like,
My
I didn't
family
realize there was so
member,
much.
one of my family members who does put his money where his mouth is, and he goes to protests and walks in front of the White House um and he said this was back in December or January. He said he was going to go, ended up not going, but he said, and he meant it. He said, and I don't care if I die because this matters.
Yeah, see this kind of
Hmm.
consciousness. And more
Hmm.
and more people are seeing that,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
really wonderful. So somebody said, look at all the horrors going around. How can you be so optimistic? And I said, no. If you look at it from the viewpoint of this big phase transformation into the birthing of the sixth humanity, as Don Miguel would say, then what you see out there is the last gasp of an old order.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
cornered a Wolverine, it's going to be tooth and
Right.
fang.
Right. Right.
So these are birth pains for the new humanity, which
Hmm.
purports to be a golden age. And it's
Hmm.
not just the Toltecs saying this too. Like in Eastern
The
thought,
Hopi said it, and
Hopi are
yeah.
saying it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Aquarian age, that's another thing.
Hmm.
What else? Like the Kali Yuga, which is a worse yuga, the age,
Hmm.
is now going towards moving towards a golden age. So there's many wisdom traditions kind of pointing to the same thing,
Right.
and we're right in the midst of it. Are we
Well,
having fun
that's
yet?
why I mean, and that's why I'm so happy that you're here with me talking today because I love to gather, I love to meet new people who are tapped in, but I love to gather those viewpoints and put them on air because my bigger goal, obviously, it's been about alternative healing mostly, but my bigger goal is about the evolution of humanity and how to
Yeah.
help us climb out of the pit where we're scrapping and fighting and just being basically ugly, and evolving. So,
Yeah, it's the only game in town, it seems,
mhm,
right? I
mhm.
mean, what else is more important?
Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing.
So,
So before we end, and we have about 8 minutes left, um, tell us about the roles you do as a teacher, and tell us about your social media. You have TikTok of wisdom sushi bites.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell
What
us
happened
about
is,
that.
or it started, I wrote a memoir. It hasn't been published yet. But when COVID happened, and the memoir has to do with all this, everything I said, the whole,
Hmm.
it's called Long Day's Journey into Light. One
Hmm.
guy's winding, twisting path, seeking on the quest for personal freedom. And then, Don Miguel's story, my Kung Fu teacher, I mean, many things. And then COVID happened, and then I couldn't do workshops and stuff as I've been doing. And so I started putting out on social media. Oh, on TikTok. I didn't even I was not involved with social media until COVID happened, which wasn't that long
Hmm.
ago. And then wow, 15,000 followed, and then 50, and then now, 300, third a million, like whoa. And then I said, I'll put it on Instagram, and then that went up too. And so that's one way that I feel real gratified of getting since my goal was to spread the deepest wisdom to the widest number of people. Oh,
Hmm.
who would have thought, through social media? I wasn't even
Hmm.
involved with it. Okay. Meanwhile, because of the success with on TikTok and stuff, people were saying, why don't you write a book? Why don't you write a book? Which I am. I've written it. And that'll
Hmm.
be a next thing that'll get published. And Don Miguel wrote a nice forward to it. And so that's called Wisdom Sushi Bites for body, mind, and spirit. And that would be like a treasure trove of the best little wisdoms and practices and inspiration
Hmm.
that I've gathered through my whole life, East and West, and where they meet and everything, and physics and all of it. And so that's the Wisdom Sushi Bite. And then meanwhile, I have an online course called Art of the Shaman. You can get it on Udemy. So that's an online course. So there will be 15 videos,
Yeah.
each one zeroing in on one point, a la the shamanic practice I learned from Don Miguel. And then I have my art and films, which you can see on my website. And
What a
now
rich life.
I know I feel blessed. I really
Well,
do.
you are, because that's a whole lot of varied and valuable experiences.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, every day I meditate and I think, thank you, Spirit, for this magnificent destiny,
Hmm. Hmm.
And then now
Um,
when I look back at all my
mhm.
sufferings of childhood, I say, thank you, adversity, for kicking me onto the path.
Right,
You know,
right.
everything has changed.
Thank you for being with me today. It was
Oh, and
wonderful.
it's a pleasure. You're
It
so
was
welcome. And
wonderful.
I thank you for I get the biggest joy of just spreading the news nowadays.
Wonderful.
You've been listening to Maximum Medicine Radio with Doc Martin. Tune in next time while the doc talks health, spirituality, and the impact your beliefs have on every part of who you are, body and soul. Doc Martin unpacks the challenges we face as human beings. To learn more about Doc Martin and Maximum Medicine, visit www.sharonmartinmd.com.